The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to the Barons and LA Choppers How to Lower Your Bike to Maintain Safety, Control, and Comfort webinar. We really appreciate you guys all coming out tonight and to being part of this webinar series that we've created here. Tonight is a technical discussion that we hope you get some benefit out of, hopefully take some fear and concern about what you would need in order to lower your motorcycle. Tonight with us, of course, we have Barons and LA Choppers, and Chucky is our representative from there. Welcome, Chucky.
How's it going?
Doing fantastic. So you ready to talk about lowering your motorcycle?
I've been waiting all day.
Beautiful. So as you guys might know, this is a co-sponsored webinar. Actually, it's tri-sponsored. We have Barons, who is one of the metric leaders when it comes to suspension and lowering your bike, and LA Choppers, which has historically been a V-twin brand, or Harley-Davidson, and they've got all the parts that will facilitate that process. And Cruiser Customizing, we retail the LA Choppers and Barons parts, so that is what we are doing. So Barons, give us a little history on Barons. How long has Barons been around and been working with suspension products, Chucky?
Well, Barons really started coming on strong around mid-90s, 96 with the Yamaha Royal Star, and was an integral part of the whole Star Cruiser line. You know, John Von Schalde was he was a pioneer as far as metric customization goes, and so, you know, as long as they've been doing parts, they've been lowering metric bikes.
Beautiful. And then LA Choppers, what's the dig on them?
Probably about the same time is when LA Choppers started doing that. In fact, our touring, which would be 02 to 13 touring lowering kit, is our most popular part number.
Interesting. So you guys are definitely a front runner when it comes to lowering a motorcycle.
Oh yeah, as soon as we catch wind of a new model coming out, that's the first thing we get a bike and try to make happen.
Beautiful. So just so you guys can put a face to the name, Chucky is there on the left. I'm there on the right. On your monitor there, that was when Chucky was up when we were doing the LA Choppers webinar a couple months ago. So in the background, it's going to be Jason, who you guys talked with last time, as well as Eric Garrison, our Director of Marketing at Cruiser Customizing. Eric is learning how the process works so that he can continue the saga. So during this webinar, here's the table of contents. We're going to talk about why you would want to lower your bike, common lowering options, how to choose the best option for your particular application, how to install a lowering kit, what to look out for when you do decide to make that jump. We're then going to give a shopping spree giveaway. And the reason that we're doing that this time is the fact that there's so many options out there. We didn't want to have to pigeonhole you guys into, wait, I take that back. We're doing that one. Okay, got it. And then we got special offers. So we're going to be talking about those, and then we'll have questions and answers. So there's going to be a free part giveaway. There's going to be a shopping spree where you get a lucky winner will get to shop around and choose what they want. Pretty awesome. So before we get started, we are going to be popping poll questions here throughout the day, throughout the evening, I should say. The poll question will give us an idea to kind of see where the audience is sitting. We can kind of cater to the audience via the answers that we get. So the first poll question is going to be, what is the main reason that you would lower your motorcycle? So I can touch the ground, overall comfort, or a badass look. I guess I should have added a fourth question on there. I'm not going to lower my motorcycle. I just came here to learn, but we didn't do that. So Jason and Eric, you guys going to pop that poll for us?
Yes, sure, of course.
You got some serious echo going on there, Mr. Jason.
My mistake.
So Chucky, in your professional opinion, what's going to be our number one answer here?
I'm going to go for badass look.
Good deal. I think I'm going to go for number 2, overall comfort, which kind of encompasses number 1, so I'm kind of cheating on that one, but be interested to see what we get. Those answers coming in, Jason?
Yep, the results is coming in, so to give like a little bit of like about another 30 seconds or so.
Okay, beautiful. So Chucky, what's the coolest bike you've ever seen lowered?
I'm I'm going to say a Harley Softail. I love the looks of a Harley Softail. It absolutely ruins the ride, but to me, nothing looks better.
Fantastic. All right, we got there, Jason.
All right, let's see what we have here. Results-wise, we have 42% says so I can touch the ground.
Wow.
34% says overall comfort, and 24% badass look. Interesting. What do you guys think?
First is the worst, second is the best, and Chucky must be the nerd with the hairy chest.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
All right. So that's awesome. So the main reason is to touch the ground, and then of course for comfort and control. So I guess a couple of the main things that I thought about when I was preparing this webinar was, why do people do it, right? So to make the vertically challenged riders more comfortable, which was the #1 response from the poll, to assist in stability while riding 2-up. This is a question that, or a situation that we actually get quite a few calls on at Cruiser, where people call like, hey, look, you know what, when I'm riding by myself and I'm tippy-toeing the bike around, I'm okay with that. But when my rider gets on the back and I pull up to a stop sign and we're totally loaded, saddlebags, touring trunk, the extra rider, I have a hard time tippy-toeing in that situation. And then, of course, overall comfort and badass look are things that would obviously help maintain our style. So let's move forward and find out what are common types of lowering kits or ways to lower your motorcycle. We have adjusting your preload. So your stock shock, this is a kind of interesting thing. So your stock shock normally has adjustment where you can actually turn the shock and adjust it so it's either higher or lower, but when you do that, you're significantly changing how your shock functions and acts. You want to touch a little bit on that, Chucky?
Yeah, that you see that a lot more on the metric bikes than you do the V-twins, and it'll give you a little bit of adjustability, but if you want to drop an inch or so, you're going to have to go with some type of a change.
Okay, so the other two options here, #2 and #3, are either shorter shocks or a shock relocation, which is really what most all lowering kits do. And there's several different forms that you can do. So why would you choose a lowering kit in lieu of a new suspension setup? So there's a couple interesting things when it comes to this. #1, cost is huge. Chucky, what's the average cost of an aftermarket suspension?
Right in the neighborhood of $100.
No, I'm talking about complete suspension.
Suspension? Yeah, if you want anything decent, $400.
So you're looking at anywhere between $399 and $899 for a set of rear shocks, and then another $99 to $120 for the front springs. So cost is definitely huge. The next thing is, why would you choose a lowering kit instead of in lieu of a new suspension? If you're riding with brand new shocks on your bike and you like the way that it rides, you just want it to be a little lower, there's no real need to spend that huge amount of money. The average lowering kit is really inexpensive, and what are we looking at as far as that goes, Chucky?
That would be about $100.
About $100. So you'll get the same type of height effect that you could spend $1,000 or more on, or you can use a lowering kit and get the same effect. Now, this is one thing that while we were prepping for this, Chucky brought up that I really didn't think about, is that by choosing a lowering kit, you can actually keep like OEM ride quality as well as the stock geometry of the motorcycle. Now, how is the geometry affected here, Chucky?
With most lowering kits, now like a shock relocation, sometimes you change the trajectory of the shock by changing the angle of it, but with a dog bone style situation, all you're doing is moving the swing arm up into the fender like you're collapsing the suspension. So everything works the same. You're just putting the suspension closer to the stops.
Okay. And so dog bone is kind of an interesting term, and that is actually a type of lowering kit, and we'll see images of that here in just a little bit. So why would you choose a new suspension setup instead of lowering kit? Performance and handling. The performance and handling you get out of a properly tuned, professionally made aftermarket set of suspension is absolutely incredible, in my opinion. It's one of the largest items. I guess that's not the right term. What would I want to say? I would want to say it's one of the biggest improvements that you can make to your ride quality and ride comfort, other than changing your riding position. Number two, like your OEM shocks. If your OEM shocks are completely toast, I mean, lowering your bike is, I mean, why waste the money? Why waste the money on something that's not even good to ride on anymore? Because you're going to have to go out and spend new money on OEM replacements if you didn't want to go aftermarket. So once again, just go ahead and upgrade with the aftermarket and you're good to go. If you have a shock that's damaged, or if you want a custom look, those would be ways that you could modify the physical appearance of your bike or change something that's broken by doing a suspension upgrade. So for the next poll question, if you were lowering your motorcycle, would you choose a lowering kit, an aftermarket suspension? You might still be unsure, or like, I'm not lowering your bike, I'm just here to learn some information. Mr. Jason, Eric, you guys please pop that poll for us.
Gotcha, guys.
Excellent. So, Mr. Chucky, if you were going to be lowering one of your motorcycles this week, which one of these would you choose?
I would choose a lowering kit.
And why is that?
Because if you ever change your mind, it can go back to where it was.
Good call. Good call. Can you give us an example of where you could find that extremely useful?
Okay, like we were talking about earlier, I used to have a client when I had my own shop, and he would come in and we'd stick the lowering kit on real quick when him and his wife were packing up the bag, and every summer they'd go for a month-long trip in a different direction. And as soon as he got back, we'd pop it off and stick the shocks back to where they were, because he liked to ride in the stock position. It was when he was just solo riding.
Nice. Yeah, I have a customer of mine that when he is showing his motorcycle, of course he likes it to be as low as possible, but when he's actually riding it and using it for its intended purpose, other than looking good on a showroom floor, he actually puts taller shocks and front suspension on so he can get more aggressive in the corners and turning. So just a really simple way for him to modify the motorcycle without it being too tough, too difficult. Mr. Jason, what have you got?
All right, great. I think Chucky called it, because we have 68% a lowering kit, then we have unsure at 16%, and we have 12% aftermarket suspension, and 5% I'm lowering my bike.
Nice. Good deal. So let's talk a little bit about how lowering kits are installed. Thank you, Jason, for that. Lowering kits, it really varies by style of motorcycle, but in general, you're going to remove or detach a shock. You're then going to attach the relocation device and reattach a shock. Mr. Chucky, some tips or hints when people are doing this at home in the garage?
It's really helpful to always have an extra set of hands. A lot of this stuff can be done by yourself, and I always try to have an extra jack. That way you can get one under the front of the motorcycle to stabilize the bike, and then have another one that you can raise and lower the back wheel when you're attaching either the shocks. If you have to lower everything down so you can move them back and attach them to the bracket, or if you're installing new dog bones, that way you can kind of line everything up so you don't have to fight and try and shove bolts through.
Dude, that is a great suggestion. I know the first couple lowering kits or shocks or suspension that I put on a bike, I only had a single jack. So basically you jack the bike up enough in order to get pressure to release off of the shocks. You then pull the shocks off, and then when you put the new one on, it's not usually, or after you install the lowering kit, it's never at the same spot. So now it was a matter of lowering the motorcycle up and down in order to get the perfect spot where the wheel was in the perfect spot in order to be able to attach the the new piece. A second jack underneath that wheel would have been a huge help.
One of my favorite tools is the spare tire jack out of my wife's old Accord. I snagged it out of it before we traded it in, and a little chunk of 2x4.
That's a good call. Good call. Now another tip on that: if you're using a jack and a 2x4, if the bike's already up off the ground a little bit, and you can slide that 2x4 underneath the wheel and create an angle that you can then put the jack under the end of the 2x4 that's now sticking out of the back of the tire. That's really a good way to make minor adjustments there that can definitely be helpful. So let's talk a little bit about rear lowering kit examples. Now earlier Chucky mentioned dog bone. In this particular photograph, if you look at the left-hand image, second down on the left-hand side, or in the center there on the left-hand side, that would be an example of a dog bone. Now, just for the user edification, Chucky, can you go through a couple of these and just kind of talk about the different uses for each of these and what maybe why they're different?
Yeah, if you look at the photo on the left, the top left corner, what that does is that just it goes on the end of the shock, and it basically, like I said, it pushes the swing arm up by extending the size of the shock. The one next to that, the shaped like a cross, that is the lowering link that goes into a Roadstar. So you could actually use that in conjunction with the dog bone kit that we make for that and really slam a Yamaha Roadstar.
Nice.
Then if we move over to the picture on the right, the top left, that's for a Softail Harley-Davidson, and the two next to it are a couple examples of the shock relocations for a Sportster and a Dyna.
So essentially with the shock relocation pieces, what's going to happen is you're going to unbolt your shock and move it and bolt the lowering kit in place where the stock shock bolt was, and then reattach the shock to the other part, or to the other hole. How are lowering kits installed? Front lowering kits now vary by style, of course, but in general, you're going to remove the front forks, disassemble them sufficiently to get to all of the pieces that you need to get to. You're going to install spacers. You're going to reinstall the OEM top-out springs, adjust the preload using a PVC spacer as a general rule, reassemble the forks, and then install them to the motorcycle. What tips and tricks can you give, Chucky, as far as installing a front lowering kit?
First and foremost, when you take the top cap off of the fork tube, understand that it's under pressure, and if you're not paying attention, you could lose a tooth, an eye.
Oh my gosh. I'm only laughing because the first time I took my Goldwing apart, I almost lost a tooth. So
yeah, you know, everybody makes that mistake once, and hopefully they don't put a ding in their a bike part or a crack in a windshield or who knows what. You know, all of our lowering kits come with a pretty decent instruction manual. I would always suggest having the factory service manual handy just for fork oil heights and simple things like that. But front forks, although it's kind of intimidating to people, they're really easy to lower. And after you do your first one, if you ever get another bike, you won't be scared.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. So this page here has examples of what you would normally see as far as a lowering kit goes. I'm going to go ahead and let Chucky have the floor again. You can kind of walk us through kind of what we're looking at here and identify some of the pieces for you end users.
Okay, you can see how all the lowering kits are pretty similar. The technology for cruiser motorcycles, there really isn't any. It's basically the same suspension technology since the 70s. The majority of our kits, whether it be like the Vulcan 900 or even all of the Harley and Roadstar models, we take and replace the factory spring with a progressively wound spring that is a little stouter, and it really improves the ride, makes it a lot more plush. Then the little springs that you see in the kit, that's what goes on the dampener that sticks out the bottom that attaches to your fork lower, and so it just reduces the amount of travel that the lowers will move, and that's how you get the lowering kit. Then, of course, we have to take up the extra space that the progressive spring leaves when you take out the big spring that comes stock. So basically all you do is just cut a spacer to take up the slack, dump your fluid back in there, put everything back together, and you're done.
Beautiful. Thank you for that walkthrough. Now this is another question here, Chucky. Can I install a lowering kit at home in my own garage? What's your take on that?
Absolutely. Like I said, if you have the manual, you don't need to even break it apart from the seals. That way you don't need a fork seal slammer. You don't need anything special. If you just take your time, you can take everything apart. You can replace your oil. You can put in your new lowering kit. So you'll kill two birds with one stone. You're basically going to do your maintenance by putting in a new clean suspension fluid and a progressive spring and a lowering kit. So all around you're going to get a nice easy ride, and it's a good weekend project.
Beautiful. So I have listed a couple tools here: motorcycle jack, basic hand tools, fork oil, and potentially, of course, OEM special tools if you need them. I know the VTX 1800 is a bear if you don't have the special tools that Honda requires. Other than these basic things, do you think there's anything missing on this list, Chucky?
Now a can of parts cleaner. That way you could get everything really clean and get all the junk that builds up inside out of there, so when you put it back together, it's fresh and clean.
Good call. Good call. So the next poll question: if you're installing a lowering kit, would you take it to a dealership, do it yourself in your own garage, hire a buddy because you know it's good for him to deal with it, ask a buddy to lend a hand, or I've already told you I'm never lowering my bike? So Jason and Eric, if you guys could pop this poll question for us, please.
Sure, let me pop that up right now. I actually think it's a really interesting question, especially the answers.
So Jason, if you, so just so you guys know, Jason just took his MSF course 2 weeks ago, I think, and has got his motorcycle license now. So Jason, if you were going to lower a motorcycle, which one would you choose?
I'm one of those people who would do it myself in my own garage, or I have an option that I could ask Kyle.
Good call. Good call. All right, Chucky. I've got $25 on do it myself in my own garage. Ask a buddy to lend a hand. That's my favorite one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be do it myself in my garage. That's why everybody's here tonight.
Mm-hmm. So I think between doing it yourself in your own garage and asking a buddy to lend a hand, I think we're going to have the definitely the two winners there.
Although if I had $1 for every time a buddy called me so I could lend a hand.
Amen to that. Amen to that. What are we looking like, Jason?
All right, let me go close the poll now. It's I hope I didn't influence anyone's answers. 51% actually says do it myself in my own garage.
Dude, 51,
And then
you only got
30% says ask a buddy to lend a hand. 13% take it to a dealership. And then hire a buddy, he can deal with it. And I'm told you I'm never lowering my bike is both at 3%.
Beautiful. Good call, good call. So what to look out for or think about when lowering a bike. Now this is something that legitimately a lot of people don't take time to think about before they lower their motorcycle. I remember the first motorcycle that I lowered was actually a 2002 DRZ 400. And I put a Kuba link and a special lowering jazz on that puppy, lowered it down, and then it wouldn't even sit upright in the garage because the kickstand was too long. So there are definitely some things to think about or to plan for when you're going to lower the bike. So clearance over speed bumps. Like you might be used to riding over the same speed bumps for the last however many years you've been riding your motorcycle. Once you lower the bike, bam, you hit the bottom of the frame. Probably not a good idea. Corner ending angles can be changed. I already mentioned side stand too long. I've known some guys that have lowered bikes that have center stands, and it's almost impossible to get that bike up and onto the center stand. So there's a couple different things you can do. You can actually lower or shorten the center stand, kind of like the police officers have the ones that rock back and they don't raise your bike as much, but they definitely work. And another one, your tires might, if you lower the bike too much, bottom out on the fender. In your professional opinion, Chucky, which of these are the biggest culprits?
The corner lean angle that's something that has to be learned, because if you're used to leaning the bike in the corner, you're going to hit your floorboards if the bike's really low, and that's something that, especially here in Southern California, our soft hill guys love their Mexican lowrider look. So we lower the bike 2 inches in the front, 2 inches in the rear, and if you could high center going over a speed bump, the bikes are so low. So all the forward controls are ground down to nothing. You can grind the side of your exhaust pipe off. That's something that's real important to look out for.
So there's a couple things. When after installing the lowering kit, you can actually change your riding position, how you ride on the bike in corners. You can actually make up some of that difference. So, you see sport bike riders do it all the time. The reason that they lean off the bike to the downhill side is so that the bike can actually stand further up and you can get farther over. So by adjusting the way and changing the way that you actually physically ride your motorcycle, you can totally make up for any of the lowering that you've done. And sometimes it can be quite fun. Center stands, I know that Barron's makes some aftermarket, and does LA Choppers as well? Center stand or side stands?
Nope, LA Choppers does not.
Okay.
We have a lean angle adapter for the soft tails that changes the lean angle of the stock one.
Okay. So once again, just being able to relocate, change the angle so that the kickstand is now short enough that it's going to work appropriately with your bike. All right. Before we get to the giveaway, are there any other things you want to cover here, Chucky? Chat about lowering kits or why we do them?
You know what? There's an option that I think we should at least mention, which you and I talked about the other day, is air suspension. Now, neither brands do an air suspension currently, but that's another option. It's a really expensive option.
Yeah, we offer it from both Cool Metal, makes a pretty neat kit, Progressive Suspension, makes some really badass air lowering kits. So why don't you talk a little bit about the functionality of an air kit?
What an air shock allows you to do is lower and raise the bike kind of on the fly, and you could actually set the tension also. So if you're loaded down for a trip, you can raise the bike up, but then set it really stiff so that you don't pogo going down the freeway. They do have a function, and it's cool. There's companies like Platinum Air Suspension that you can hook it up to a little key fob, so you can lower your bike from a distance, and hopefully it won't fall over in the parking lot.
No, air suspension is fantastic. You can adjust the preload. So say you're riding 2 up, you can put a little bit more air in it. Functions much like the air suspension you'd have, say, on your pickup truck to be able to compensate for loads and things. Pretty phenomenal. All right, so now it's time for the giveaway, where we're going to draw a name. Jason will then announce the winner. We'll bring the winner online. Now, once again, this is for a shopping spree, $300 that they'll be able to spend on any Barron's and LA Choppers product. You ready to do this action, Jason?
Yep, I'm ready. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let Eric talk. He's going to pull the name out of a hat.
Ooh.
All right, here we go.
What kind of hat are you guys using?
Well, it's a virtual hat.
A virtual hat. Wonderful.
So the winner is Terry Blunt.
All right,
Jason?
Terry, congratulations. Jason's going to unmute your mic.
Congratulations. Terry, do you want to talk?
Sure, yeah, that's pretty wild. I didn't expect anything to come out of this.
That's awesome. Congratulations, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I saw it posted on Facebook and, of course, on the Cruiser Customizing, the Moto Tribe site, and I wanted to join. I was at the last one where we were talking about wiring and things of that nature, and I really enjoyed it. So that's why I showed up for this one. I'm looking forward to ones in the future, too. You guys put out some good information.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for joining us. Without you guys attending, we wouldn't have anybody to talk to, so we really appreciate that. What's that? Go ahead. Sorry.
I used progressive suspension on mine a few years ago, so I'm very happy with what came out of it. I used the 412s on the back and the progressive springs with a 1-inch lowering on the front on my Sabre, and I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, I'm currently running the progressive 440s on the back of my VTX, and then of course the springs up front. And suspension definitely changes the feel of your motorcycle. It's pretty awesome. So we didn't want to pigeonhole you as the winner and tell you what you were going to have to win. So now you got $300 to be able to spend on Barron's and LA Chopper products. So if you could shoot me your contact information via email.
Okay.
And then I will follow up with you, and you can send me a shopping list, and we'll make it happen.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Okay. So my email address is kyle@cruisercustomizing.com. Go ahead and shoot that over to me, and we'll get you handled. Well, thanks again, man.
Okay,
Congratulations, Terry.
Thanks, guys.
If you got before we kick you off, have you got any questions that you would normally ask in the Q&A section that we can get for you to kick that off?
Not really, not this time. Last time I had a couple of questions, but this time I'm pretty good.
Okay.
I've never done any handlebars or like ape hangers or anything like that, so last time was more of a learning experience than this time for me, but it's still good stuff.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us. So you said you lowered your Sabre. Is that what you're currently riding as well?
Yep, I've got a 07 Shadow Sabre.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, congratulations. All right, so just for you guys who have tuned in, there is a 24-hour deal. Once again, we do this at the end of each of our webinars, and the coupon code for the deal is GOLOW13, GOLOW13. Now, how this coupon code works is you're going to purchase any Barron's or LA Choppers part. You're going to enter this coupon code upon checkout, and you have basically a two-tiered gift for the next 24 hours. You're either going to get a bottle opener or an 18-to-1 metric wrench. You get to choose the product, and here's an image of those products. So the bottle opener is pretty awesome. It fits any 3/8-inch bolt, correct, Chucky?
Yep, that's it.
So if you have a 3/8-inch bolt anywhere on your motorcycle, you could just throw it through this bottle opener, and then you have a perfect bottle opener to open any root beer that you would like to drink while riding your motorcycle. The other one is the 18-to-1 metric wrench. This is a really interesting device. So as you can see there on the wrench itself, there's little flyouts, I guess you'd call them, that you could change the width of the wrench in order to get the perfect size. And so you can carry 18 wrenches in one. Now, the kicker here is if your order is over $199, you will receive a $30 gift certificate from Cruiser Customizing for the use on any future purchase. So not only do you get a free gift, you also would get $30 towards the next purchase. So I think that's pretty fantastic. Let's go ahead and open up for questions and answering, or questions and answers, I should say. But before we do that, I would like to ask one more poll question, and that is, I plan on lowering my bike in the next 30 days or so, before the riding season starts, which it's right here on our heels. Before Sturgis, I'm still on the fence, or last time, I am not doing it. Mr. Jason, would you fill that up for me?
All right, great. Let me pull that up right now.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, Chucky, in your estimation, how long would installing a lowering kit take for the average individual?
It really depends on the model. You know, like I said, our most popular one's the Harley Touring Kit, and I've done it, you know, over and over and over again. I can do it in about 20 minutes, but, you know, we have kits that are pretty involved that take a few hours. If you buy our Race Tech kit for the Roadstar, it's pretty involved with putting the gold valve emulators and everything together. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the majority of them are under an hour, though.
So I would say you could legitimately do your, you know, rear shock relocation on most motorcycles in a half hour, 45 minutes. From my own personal experience, digging into the front forks was a little bit scary the first time I did it. But like Chucky alluded to, once you do it the first time, it's cake, and it's like no-brainer. But it's one of those things, you know, it's one of the two things that hold you above of the ground, and you don't want to screw that up. And but it's really not that bad. But that process, I would say, that one actually took me a little bit longer. I'd say I probably worked on that for like an hour and a half or so the first time I did it. But now it's like 30 minutes done.
Yeah, but I always encourage people to, and if you think you can do it, you probably can. And the more you can do on your own motorcycle, the more you know your motorcycle, and the better the experience of owning and riding.
Amen to that one. All right, Mr. Jason, what have we got?
Great. All right. We have 54% says I'm still on the fence. 26% says in the next 30 days or so. 13% says before the riding season starts. 4%. Last time, I'm not doing it.
Awesome,
All right.
awesome.
All right, 4%. I got you. And then we've got 3% before surges.
Beautiful. So now it's time for question and answers, and legitimately, this is my absolute favorite part of every one of these webinars, being able to open up the phones essentially and allow you guys to ask any questions you've got and kind of walk through that. Just the personal interaction in this section of the webinar I absolutely love. So you've got two ways you can do it. Number one, you can use the chat box to staff to ask your question. Eric or Jason, in this case Jason sounds like, will unmute your mic and read your question to the panel. One of my preferred ways is you can raise your hand. Just click the hand button on the screen there, and then your mic will be unmuted and you can personally ask your question, so we get to chat with you. If you've got a question that you don't know how to verbalize or think it will take too long or want a more in-depth answer than you think you'll get here in this particular session, you can always email myself, Kyle@cruisercustomizing.com, and I will work with Chucky and get back to you with the best answer possible. So we're going to go ahead and open that up and roll with it. Jason, what have we got?
Great. Like so, what Carl was saying. Feel free to raise your hand, and I'm gonna choose your name, and you can speak live. For our first question, we got one from Steve. Steve is asking, have a 99 Honda Shadow Aero 1100. I want to lower it in the seat. How can I? Will shocks do it?
Okay, Steve. The answer to that question, is Steve going to come along, or are we answering that without him?
I'm gonna answer without him.
Okay. So Steve, your 99 Aero, super simple to lower. I mean, we got kits for it. Legitimately take you an hour and a half or so to do at home in your own garage. And yes, you can lower your seat height as up to 2 inches. I guess 1 inch is probably the most common. But yeah, you would essentially just either change your shocks out in the rear or add a lowering kit, like we talked about earlier today. And then the front forks, you'd have to actually get in there and swap the springs out in order to make that happen.
Hey Carl, I see that Steve just raised his hand. So Steve, if you want to elaborate on your question or anything, feel free. I just unmuted you.
Hey, welcome, Steve.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for joining us. What can we do for you tonight?
Hey, well, 2 inches would be the max I'd want to lower. 1.5 inches would be preferable, but my question was, how will that affect the drive shaft?
I mean, technically your drive shaft already moves in all of that. You're basically limiting the amount of movement that your drive shaft is going to have. You're not going to extend it farther. So I guess I would say if you're putting longer shocks on your motorcycle or extending the length that the swing arm is going to travel, that would potentially cause more problem than shortening it, because it's still moving in that designated space. Now there is one problem that you might run into if you choose to go, say, 2 inches or so. The problem with that is the tire in that situation, I've known several people who have done it, has bottomed against the fender. So what happens is there is a, what do they call that, travel eliminator, I guess, that would snap in to the, with the dampening rod, I guess it's in there, and limit the movement of the shock.
Right. Okay. And what about the front shocks? Just a regular lowering kit for that?
Yeah, that's the way to do it for sure.
All right, perfect. Anything else I need to know about doing it?
Mr. Chucky?
You know what? I've never lowered that bike, so I can't be helpful there. But if it's anything like the 750, it's a breeze.
Yeah, it's definitely not too tough. How many miles do you have on that bike?
I just crossed 10,000.
10,000? Okay.
Yep.
So, I mean, in the next 5,000 miles, 10,000 miles or so, you're going to be wanting to do a suspension upgrade anyway, because those shocks usually only last, 10 to 15.
Right.
Before they start, beating you up on the road. So in that situation, I would probably just throw on a shorter pair of shocks. And quick tip here, if you can't find them listed for your 1100 Aero, which sometimes they're not, there are Harley-Davidson applications that work perfectly on the Aero. And take a look at the forums, and you'll find some part numbers there.
All right, thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us tonight.
All right. So we have another question from Brett. Brett is asking, why is it you show a kit for C90 Suzuki's but not C50 when it's the same? And is there one for the front of a C50?
Interesting question. I would say, you want to handle that one, Chucky?
Yeah, I'm getting to our website right now. We have a C50 lowering kit. I've done it. Let's see here. Okay, so what was the question? Why does the C50 and the C90? We have a C50 lowering kit. A C90 we don't have a lowering kit for, I believe. Let's see here. So what motorcycle does Brett have?
Unfortunately, I don't know, but from the question, let me just repeat the question. So, why is it you show a kit for C90 Suzuki, but not C50 when it's the same? And is there one for the front of a C50?
We do not have one for the front of a C50. Okay, I see the C90 there. Oh, maybe I have it backwards. Well, they are not the same bike.
Okay. Hey, Brett, go ahead and shoot me an email, and we can work on this one offline.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely figure out what we can do for you.
Yeah, we do. We have a C50 lowering kit. It's we have it under LA choppers. It's LA 7540-00.
There you go, Brett. LA 75. What was it? 75 what?
7540-00. The C50 is exactly the same as the V-Star 1100, 950, and 1300.
Oh, beautiful. Nice. Okay, and Brett, I have a little trick for you that is used often. It may affect your covered forks, so if you've got those, you got to be careful. But a trick that lots of people do in the sport bike and even dirt world to change their steering geometry and lower the front of the bike is to actually let the fork tubes slide through the triple tree about an inch and then lock them back down again. So if you really want to match your front and rear ride height and there is not a kit available for your bike, that is one way to do it. All right. Next question, Jason.
All right. Let's go into the live. So, I think Terry has a question here. Terry, did you have anything to say?
Welcome, Terry. How's it going? Terry, you out there?
Oh, sorry, I pushed the mute button.
There you go. Welcome to the webinar. What can we do for you today?
Yeah, you guys are the ones who called me for the drawing.
Okay, awesome.
Just something to throw out there. I've come across individuals at times that have said you can actually take the fork itself and raise the top tube of the fork in the triple tree about an inch to get the lowering effect.
Correct.
But I've always had to try to explain to them what that does in relation to the springs, because they're not a progressive type spring, and I would like somebody to, at least elaborate on it to give people the idea of why you shouldn't do it.
Chucky?
I've never done that in a cruiser. On my dirt bike, I used to do it dependent on track conditions, but it would be, a couple millimeters here or there, and it makes a difference in the rake and trail when you do that. It's different than moving the suspension around inside. When you actually move it up in the triple trees, it changes the rake and trail dimensions. So, yeah.
And essentially, the effect you're going to get on that, if you slide it up into the tree, the effect is going to be twofold. Number one, you might smash your fender against the bottom of the triple tree if not done correctly. Number two, by shortening essentially the length of your forks out in front there and changing that rake and trail, the bike will turn in much, much quicker than you're used to. So as far as using a progressive versus non-progressive spring, I mean, you're going to have much more compression on a non-progressive spring than you would on a progressive spring. Any other differences or changes you'd see there, Chucky?
It seems like you can run a stiffer progressive spring and get a smoother ride. I don't know. I would immediately swap out my stock spring, even just for a progressive spring.
Okay.
Right, that's what I tend to tell people, is to put something that has some sort of a compressive style to it in the fork, rather than just drop it like that to get the effect. Because of the lowering kits, they come with the little 1-inch springs to give you the lowering effect rather than shortening your suspension, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And the standard spring, you're basically weakening your suspension and shortening it at the same time with a regular rate spring.
Good call. Good call. Excellent. Well, thanks for tuning in and helping us out, Terry.
Sure.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Mr. Jason, next up.
All right, the grade. Let's see. We have a question here from George. George, do you have a question?
Hi.
Hey, George. Welcome to the webinar. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
What are you riding?
An 1100 or 2011 Yamaha Raider S. I was wondering if you can lower the rear suspension without changing the front suspension, and if so, what does that do for the handling?
Go for it, Chuck.
Well, I don't know anybody that, from what I'm reading on the Raider forums, everybody wants to extend the front forks. Other than the front end is going to sit a little bit higher if you look at it, and that's definitely a bike that you'd want to lower the kickstand on. Our Yamaha Raider lowering kit's got to be one of our most popular Barron's numbers. It's a phenomenal look when you do it. And that's not a bike that it's got forward controls. It's not something that you really have to worry about the controls rubbing on. So that's a really good platform to lower.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking of lowering it because I was wanting to go with like a low and mean fender, like the Reaper on the rear, and I think it'll set too high without lowering it though.
I think it would too.
All right, thank you.
I don't see any adverse effects from doing that, George, if that was your question.
All right, thank you.
Good job. Hey, thanks for joining us tonight. You have a good one.
You too.
Next up, Mr. Jays.
All right, next question. This one was actually asked by Adam. He's asking, does lowering your bike void any factory warranties?
All right, so there's really no good or bad answer on this one. Legitimately, your factory warranty is for any part that fails that's, manufacturer, workmanship, or defect, right? So if your swing arm bushings are broken up at the front or something happened there, then there's really no conjunction there. Or if your motor fails because of something, has nothing to do with your suspension. The dealership would have to prove without any doubt that whatever modification you made to the motorcycle caused or had an effect on whatever the failed piece is. So legitimately, I can't think of, other than, I don't even know. I can't even think of something that would happen. So maybe, for example, say your frame cracked at the bolt where your shock is mounted, where if you've done suspension work on it and those were changed or modified, they might not want to cover that. But if anything else happened to the motorcycle, there's no way that suspension could possibly be contributed as a factor to that. Is that the same type of scenario that you've seen, Chucky?
Yeah, I can't think of anything that lowering your bike would do, because like I said, the majority of like the Harley kits or the dog bone applications, you're just taking the existing travel and shortening it by pushing the wheel up into the fender, so everything's acting as it naturally does anyhow.
Right, like I said, the dealership would have to prove that whatever modification you made is what caused the failure, which I can't see how that would happen. So no, lowering your motorcycle should not affect your factory warranty. Mr. Jason, next question.
All right, next question. Next question is from Paul. I see his raised hand. So Paul, are you there?
Hey, welcome to the webinar, Paul. Thanks for joining us.
For Paul McCullough?
Hey, Paul.
That's right.
It's good. I'm just wondering if I lower the rear of my bagger bike, do I really have to lower the front too?
No, you do not have to lower the front. No, you should be able to ride just fine with the rear lowered a little bit.
Won't affect the handling.
You might feel a slight change in the way it reacts, but overall you're not going to have any problems. No.
Okay. Second question on it's a 2013 Ultra, and does the bracket that I used for lowering that push the shock out?
It barely pushes it out.
So it may touch the bag?
The shock won't touch the bag at all.
It won't. I mean, from pushing it out, when I push it out with the lowering kit.
Well, see, that's why our kit's so popular, is it drops the shocks down.
It doesn't push them out.
It pushes them out just a little bit, but there's a big enough pocket back there that they fit.
It is. That's all I needed to know. Thank you very much.
Awesome, Paul. Thanks for calling in.
You're welcome.
All right. Next question is going to be from Roger. Roger, are you there?
Mr. Roger, you out there? All right, I'm not hearing Roger.
Okay, Roger, if you have another question, please ask again, and and then we'll get back to you. So, knowing that, we'll just skip to Joseph. Joseph, are you there?
Hey Joseph, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, Kyle. You mentioned shortening the kickstand.
Yes.
Instead of buying a kickstand. Now, how would you shorten it? Just have it cut it and weld it, or and re-chromed and spend all that money, or do something simple?
Well, there's a couple different things. What are you currently riding?
I got the 2008 Electric Light Ultra.
Okay.
And my kickstand, even in stock, is actually gets in the way. I can't push the bike with the kickstand down.
Okay.
So
do you have a relocation kit, Chucky, for that one?
We don't. Arlen Ness makes a really nice kickstand for it, though.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, you could go to the work of cutting and rewelding and rechroming, but I would recommend an aftermarket shorter kickstand way before I go to all of that effort. And then if there's a relocation kit that you can get that would modify the angle it sits at, it's always an option. But yeah, in this case, we're going to refer you to Arlen Ness. They definitely got the best option for your particular bike.
Now the Arlen Ness lowers it like for a 2-inch kit, so I don't want my bike leaning too far over.
No, you should be just fine with that.
Okay.
You should be just fine.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling in. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, Mr. Jason, next up.
Great. All right, next question from Michael. Michael, are you there?
Is that me?
There you are,
Hello.
Michael. Hey, thanks
Sounds
for
like
joining
you.
us tonight.
Hello, yes. Okay, I submitted I'm happy to be here. I submitted a question earlier that you covered about reclamping the fork tubes.
Okay.
On this particular bike, I got to lower my girlfriend's V-Star 650.
Okay.
The front end has those like shrouds around the tubes.
Yep.
You know, coverings. Is that going to create a problem? And if I do only lower it about an inch, will it really change the rake and trail that dramatically?
So there is a front lowering kit that's made. So let me back up a little bit. The only time that I would recommend even doing the triple tree action where you're sliding the forks up is if there is absolutely no other option available. But for the V-Star, there is a front lowering kit available for it. It's not very expensive, and it would improve your ride quality and make the bike handle perfect. So that would be my first recommendation. In order to answer your question, depending on the make and model with covered forks, it is possible, but looks a little bit odd because those tapered forks come up to the top, and then you have this thing sticking up that looks kind of funny.
Right.
And then on the bottom, you might not have enough room. So, for example, on some models, which I believe yours is, that cover sits in between the triple tree, and I'm trying to think of how it attaches on the bottom. It's been a while since I had a V-Star 650 apart. You might not have
It's
enough.
the V-Star
area.
Classic.
The Classic? Okay.
Yeah.
So you might not have enough room on the bottom in order for that shroud to fit. So you might have to remove the lower shroud in order to make it happen. I can't remember off the top. I'd have to take a look at old footage I have the last time I tore apart a V-Star. But like I said, I would recommend the lowering kit for the front of that thing. You'll be much, much more happy with the performance of it and how it feels and the overall effect.
Yeah, I've already got the block for the back shock, the rear shock, and I'm hoping dropping it an inch will be enough. But I was just wondering if it wasn't, if I could do a little with the front end. But you don't recommend that?
No, I definitely would recommend using the lowering kit if you're going to go that route.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Hey, thanks for calling in.
You're welcome.
Awesome. You have a great night. Mr. Jason, next up.
All right, we have a question from Chris. Chris, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Chris, welcome to the webinar. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
What can we do for you tonight?
I've got a road runner, and I'm looking to lower the back, but as it stands now, tight right-hand corners if I'm coming down, like off a bridge. I'll scrape my pipes on the right-hand side.
Oh, awesome.
Now, like they're just Cobra pipes that come down halfway back. They're slash cut ones. Okay. Now, if I lower it any more, I'm going to be banging those off the pavement a lot more, I think.
Yep.
Correct? Am I wrong?
No, you're 100% correct on that one.
Yeah, so now I'm thinking I should go to like an air kit, like an air ride system, so I can drop it down and make it look cool, race it back up when I'm driving. But you know the price for one of those is up around $1,000.
You're right. The price on that is
now. Can I? Is there something?
You're breaking up there on us.
Say again?
You're breaking up on there on us. What was that last question?
Okay, sorry. Is there something in between the lowering kit and the air ride?
There is. There is. It's an expensive option as well, and it's what I did on my BTX. What I did is I actually put 3-inch larger wheels, front and rear, and then lowered the motorcycle front and rear. So essentially what happened was I was able to increase my ground clearance while having the bike maintain a lowered look.
Okay.
So I can actually corner way better now than I could stock because I'm almost 2 inches higher than I was stock. But the bike has the appearance of being low because it is low. I mean, I lowered it a couple inches, but because of the larger wheels, it kind of offsets that to the positive, and I now have more ground clearance than I ever did. I've got a set of Vance & Hines big shots on that one, and that front pipe on the left-hand side, it comes, left-hand side, right-hand side? Anyway, the front pipe that goes low, that runs along the frame rail is totally ground off.
Yeah.
So.
Now, I was looking at the Raider wheels, which are bigger rear, bigger front, 21-inch front.
Perfect.
So that would get me up higher, and then I could put a lowering kit on. So that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for joining us, and thanks for the question.
Okay, thanks.
All right, you take care.
Bye.
Next up, Jason. Jason, come in, Jason. Is anybody there?
I'm here.
That's good.
Hey guys, we have a question from Doug. How low can you go without changing the ride comfort?
For those of you real quick who don't know this voice, this is Eric Garrison, our Director of Marketing. Welcome, Eric.
Hey guys, how are you doing? You saw my picture at the start of the webinar, which was terrible, but I will go with that.
Oh, come on, we love that picture.
Right.
So anyway, so the question was again, Eric? I'm sorry, I was too busy.
Basically, how low can you go without it affecting the ride comfort?
Okay. Hey, Chucky, any ideas on that one?
Boy, that's a tough question. You're making a sacrifice. So lowering it any is reducing travel. There's a reason that the bike sits where it is from the factory, and you need to make a decision. What are you willing to do? Like the majority of our kits have different settings, so you could lower it an inch, inch and a half, 2 inches, and that way you have some choices. So you could try lowering it, a half an inch and see what you think. Go another few turns and do a whole inch, and maybe you're happy there. And then there's a whole another group of people that just want to slam it down to the ground, don't care what it rides like.
Okay. I'm going to answer that question with, when lowering the motorcycle any more than, say, an inch to 2 inches, you're going to have to make other modifications to the motorcycle in order to allow it to remain safe. For example, if you lower the front more than an inch or two, you're going to be hitting your front fender up on the triple tree when you hit bumps. Same thing in the rear. If you lower the rear more than an inch or two, you're going to be rubbing your tire up into the fender well, which could hit a bolt that goes through, and then now you're getting flat tires, and it's just a non-safe practice. So if you are going to lower your bike more than that, there are things you can do to, once again, modify your motorcycle further, like change the position of the fender so there's more space in the front, or in the rear you could put the limiting spacers that I talked about earlier. But overall, probably 2 inches is the standard that you could go down to safely and effectively, because that's really what the manufacturers have worked on, and they've gotten it as low as they can go without causing other problems on your motorcycle. But it is possible, and of course an air ride kit would allow you to do that, and you can go as low as you want to, all the way slam to the ground, and then be up at a safe riding level when you want to. All right. Next question, Eric.
So we actually have a raised hand from one of the attendees. Ed, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Ed, welcome to the webinar. Thanks for attending.
Thank you. Well, I have an 82 Honda CX500 Custom,
Awesome.
and I guess the first thing I'd like to know is what would be a lowering kit part number that I could use for that bike. It already comes with air suspension on the front forks, so I guess I'm pretty well covered on the front.
Oh gosh. Dude, I love the CX500 Custom. I actually owned a, I was the first bike I ever rode on the street. I had a 78. Pretty awesome. To answer your question, I don't personally currently have a part number for you in front of me. I will have to get that back to you. So if you could please shoot me an email.
I'll do that.
Kyle at cruisercustomizing.com, and I'll make sure that I get some part numbers for you. Now, lowering the rear of that thing due to its age, I don't have any lowering kits available to me for that. So we'd have to go with a set of rear shocks from Progressive, and that's the part number that I'll be supplying to you.
Okay. Just as a side note, for extra safety on my bike, I installed a set of air horns.
Okay.
So people do get out of my way now.
That's awesome. That is fantastic. Beautiful. All right. Is there anything else we can answer for you tonight?
No, thank you very much, and I appreciated the webinar. Well, I guess one other question is, how many attendees did you have tonight?
Good question. Usually, and I won't know until it's over, so maybe I can answer that in your email until the final reports are run. But typically, we usually see just over 100, 150.
Great.
So, hey, thanks for calling in. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All righty, you take care. Next up, Eric.
Yes, sir. So we have a question from Roger. When you get a progressive spring as part of the Slam kit, is there any reason to adjust the new spring length?
Adjust. I'm confused as to adjust the new spring length. I think what you might be meaning is the spacers that then, so the new spring will be a different length than your original spring. So you'll have to make up for that distance with the spacer. But you're not going to modify the spring length per se once you install it. I feel like I'm not making that clear enough. Mr. Chucky, can you help me out on this one?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering if he's talking about, the spacer height.
Right.
Basically, when you take that shorter progressive spring and put it in there, you're adjusting your preload with the spacer. So if you want a stiffer ride, you're going to cut a longer spacer, which is going to be tougher to get the cap on because it's going to preload some pressure on the spring right from the get-go, if that's what he means.
Yeah, I from what the question sounds like, I believe that's the same. So I think we're good there. Eric, next question, please.
Yes, sir. We actually have on the line Barry. Question, Barry, you there?
Hey, Barry, welcome to the webinar. Thanks for joining us. All right. Looks like Barry might have stepped out to get himself a cold beverage. Who do you have next there?
There you go. 1 second.
Excellent.
We have a question from Val. Val, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, welcome
hey guys.
to the webinar. Thanks for joining us.
Sure thing. Great info. Thanks a lot for having me.
Absolutely.
My question is, on the 2009 Nomad that I have, I'm interested in lowering it, basically for security when I'm stopping. I ride 2 up most of the time, and this bike, it seems to be a little bit tall for me, but we're making it happen. And I'm very interested in lowering the rear at this point to help me out with that. So what can you recommend for me?
What year did you say that Nomad is?
09.
09 Nomad. Let's see here. We don't have a kit for that.
Okay. So my recommendation on that would be a set of shocks for that, which should be able to handle that appropriately.
Yeah, the reason we probably don't make that is because of the saddlebags. Saddlebags are molded around the shock usually, which prevents you from relocating them anywhere. So you're kind of forced to do a shorter shock scenario.
Okay, and the shocks, the OEM that I have on there, air shocks. I imagine that I can find a set of air shocks with that are shorter.
I believe you can. I know that there's lots of models out there that come factory with air shocks, and usually the replacements take that into account. If you could go ahead and shoot me your email, or shoot me an email with your contact information, and I'll see what I can dig up and get back to you on Tuesday.
All right, sure thing. Thank you.
Excellent. Hey, thanks for calling in. We really appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too. Bye now.
Next up, Mr. Eric.
Yes, sir. We got a raised hand from Joseph. Joseph, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Joseph. Welcome, man. How's it going?
Pretty good. Hey, Kyle, you said on your bike you put larger wheels on it?
Correct.
And you lowered it. So
Correct.
how do the logistics work out between the clearance of your fender and the triple clamp?
Everything worked out perfect.
Because your bike looks like love your wheels.
What's that? I'm sorry?
I've seen your bike. I've seen your bike. Your wheels are awesome. I like that idea. But just the logistics.
It's one of those things that I lowered it 2 inches in the rear, and I have 0 fender clearance issues, and I lowered it 1 inch in the front. The reason that I did that is the swap that I did in the front. I can't remember the stock size of my front wheel. I want to say it was a 17, went to a 21. So that was 4 inches, and in the rear I went from, I think it was a 15 to an 18, so that was only 3 inches. So with the compensation front and rear, I decided to lower only 1 inch in the front because I wanted the front end to have a look that it's a little bit tilted up compared to the back. And in that particular application, in my particular VTX 1300 application, I played with it, and I actually get a better ride response with the back being just a little bit lower than the front.
Okay, but you had no logistics problems with the fenders?
Absolutely
especially
nothing.
The front fender and the triple clamp?
No,
Triple
everything was perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that idea. That sounds pretty good.
So, I mean, for me, I like to ride rather spirited, and you know, I love the look of a lowered bike. So in order to accomplish that effect and not affect the way I can ride it, that was about the only option that I had.
Yeah, because in reality, I'm scraping my floorboards on every turn, especially trying to keep up with Uwe.
Oh, gosh. Awesome. Yeah, lots of fun. Well, it's like on the Vision of his, he actually raised that thing up, and that's the reason he can corner so aggressively on it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Beautiful. Hey, thanks for calling in. Appreciate it. All right. Well, it looks like we're winding down on questions, and we've been here for about an hour and 15 minutes. So we'll go ahead and...
1 second, Kyle.
Yes,
we basically had Barry raise his hand twice now.
Okay.
Barry, you there? Okay.
Welcome, Barry. Hey, Barry, we can't get the audio to come through for you, so if you'd go ahead and shoot me an email, I'll be happy to reach out to you on Tuesday and make sure we get that taken care of. Kyle at Cruiser Customizing is the email address. And that goes for any of you out there. If you guys have any questions about what we talked about tonight, just go ahead and shoot me an email, and I'll make sure we get that handled. Thank you, Barons and LA Choppers, for your participation tonight. Chucky, specifically, thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having us back again. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody that tuned in. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have a job. I appreciate it.
There you go. And thank you to Jason and Eric for coming in and making this happen. They're currently sitting in the office there in Northern California. Chucky and I are here in Southern California. And we'll go ahead and say goodnight to you guys. So thank you all for joining us. Tune in next month where we're going to be talking about Kuryakin foot pegs, floorboards, and foot controls. So Make sure you get signed up for that one. We'll be kicking the sign-offs for that early this next week. And again, thanks to Eric and Jason for making it happen. Thank you guys for attending, and tune in next time. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. All right. Have a good night.